without receiving them, because none of our ancient ancestors saw any real reason for punishing cavemen for killing off endangered species. So I don't really think that, despite our advances in knowledge and philosophy and bio whatever, we should be any different, right? We can see that there is in fact a value in preserving endangered species, but we feel, coming from this side of the house, that it does not warrant so unjust a punishment as to be equated with murder, Madam Chair. That is the problem that opening opposition comes into this debate, and it's something that we intend to solve. First, let's address the case of the Prime Minister here. He says that according to their policy, they will not only punish poachers themselves. They will not only punish poachers themselves with the same punishment as murder, but that they will also punish these people who actually purchase animal products from these poachers. They said they would, and also people who would keep pets as their refugees poachers with the exact same punishment that we give to poachers, and with the exact same punishment, therefore, that is given out to murderers. We don't see how this is just at all, ladies and gentlemen. Because we say that it's bad enough that you equate animal poaching and human murder, which is something totally different to begin with. So why do you give the same punishment? But even if you do, why do you give the same punishment to those who are even less involved in the crime? We don't see where true justice is being served there. Second, they say that humans look down on animals. Humans have been treating animals like vermin, and it's high time we stop this by actually punishing humans for trampling down on animals. But we feel, Madam Chair, that they haven't proven how preservation is a value in and of itself. They have not justified what are the practical benefits of preserving these endangered species. But even if they did, and even as we do, it does not warrant the same punishment as human murder, something that we'll be discussing about so much later in our speeches. Third, they say that they generalize all poachers as being funded by more powerful entities from the black market, and therefore they have powerful financial backers, so we don't see any reason why it's bad to punish them, right? We feel that's a generalization because in most parts of the third world, like Africa and China, most of the poachers there are actually really poor people living in the countryside, living in the provinces who have absolutely who cannot find a better means of livelihood than to get something as lucrative and as money making as poaching and certain valuable animal products, Madam Chair. We're not saying that's right. We're not saying we're going to let these people continue with this kind of practice. We're not saying that practice isn't bad, but we feel that it's completely unfair and unjust to punish them in the same manner as murderers who act under totally different circumstances and act completely out of free will and free intent without any economic circumstances binding them. I will be talking to you about two things, Madam Chair. Number one, how punishment should be proportional, how punishment should always be proportional to the crime, and number two, how it's completely unjust to burden people who are economically disadvantaged in the first place when you're shifting the burden to the wrong person. But before that, yes.
We concede that these particular people who buy endangered species are not really physically included in the killing of these animals, but don't you think that they're the reason why poachers kill animals and find endangered species and eventually sell them off?
Not necessarily, because you have to because the level of involvement that you are in with the crime should determine the kind of punishment that you have, not necessarily simply supporting these people, whether you may not be aware of the circumstances involved, right? So, number one, I'm going to talk to you about how punishment should be proportional to the crime. For we say that for proper justice to be served, the sentence you give should be of an equal rate to the severity and the gravity of the crime you committed in the first place, Madam Chair. We see that in status quo, under our laws, we have different sentences for murder, we have different sentences for rape, for theft, and even for traffic violations, Madam Chair. You don't punish someone who runs at a red light in the same manner that you punish a murderer or a serial killer or a rapist at the end of the day, right? So we question, why do we equate poaching endangered species to the taking of a human life? We can see that it's a harmful activity that threatens the balance of the ecosystem, biodiversity, and the psychocultural paradigm that promotes wherein the promotion of species preservation is an end value, but we still feel that it's less than murder. And by the way, I actually proved to you the practical benefits of preserving them, something which I did, none of us really even got from the Prime Minister to begin with. We say that murder is different, that human murder is different because it takes away someone who could be productive and beneficial to society in a much more different way than these animals ever will. It causes severe unnecessary distress on family and friends and violates the most fundamental right of a being that is inherently superior by any standards of evaluation to these animals in the first place. We must place a higher value on human life than we do on animal life. Because according to their policy, they're equating animal life with human life, and my partner will be telling me here why that's wrong to begin with. But yeah, okay.
We have never disallowed murder because people might not contribute in the future, but it's because of their unique qualities, ladies and gentlemen, that might contribute to that family's wholeness. It's not just about functionality, ladies and gentlemen, that we do not like murder.
I'm not saying it's about functionality. I just said that was one factor. But if you're talking about the value, the inherent value that these creatures have, whether or not that determines whether or not you should kill them, the value that the human being brings to the world is always greater than the value that the animal brings to the world, Madam Chair. That is why you do not mete out the same punishment for people who kill animals vis-a-vis people who kill other people, right? Because that sends a message that you are holding them equally. Second, the issue of poverty. You have to understand, Madam Chair, Madam Mr. Chair, that most of these poachers in Africa and China around the third world act out of the lack of economic opportunities, right? They take what's readily available to them, they take the most lucrative economic opportunity available to them. They don't care about this liberal Western mindset of environmental preservation. All they want to do is to put food on their table, Madam Chair, and that's the best way to do so. We're not saying that's right. Again, we're not justifying that by any means, we're not justifying that philosophically, but we say that you can never blame the poor for doing the only thing, the best thing that they can to get themselves out of poverty. Punish them by all means, but do not punish them in the same way that you punish murderers who act out of totally different circumstances to begin with, Madam Chair. Because what they're trying to do here is to shift the burden, of economic responsibility from the state to these people who are not given the means to provide for themselves adequately, right? You're punishing them for something that the state should have been doing in the first place, and that's why we feel that you should never equate these people in the same way as you do with people who act out of totally different circumstances, who do it out of their own free will, not because of economic opportunity, and who take away creatures that are inherently much more valuable to society than these animals ever will. Thank you.
Super.